Yo, welcome back to the channel. As you can tell by the title, for this video I'm going to be showcasing me detailing and washing the engine bay of my Civic. But on the other hand, for this video I kind of want to focus on a little discussion about talking about my Civic in terms of what it's been through, and what I have planned for next for the Civic, and as well as for the channel. There's some specific points that I won't really go into detail about because I do have that saved for another video. But essentially, this is kind of like a brief overview of the Civic in terms of the phases that I meant, that I was talking about in the last previous videos. Okay, so let's get started with this discussion. So back in my previous video, I mentioned that this car was going from phase 2 to phase 3, and I kind of want to elaborate on what I meant by that other than what I have already said in the past. Essentially, phase 2 was like when I began modding my car and committing to this whole modding scene and being a full car guy. Phase 1, I don't really talk about it too much because that was when the car was bone stock. And it was essentially how the car was all the way back until when my dad bought it in 1998. So yes, this car has been in the family since, and it wasn't until my end of high school, beginning of my freshman year of college, that this car was passed down to me. And yeah, owned it, drove it, and yeah, kept it bone stock to phase 1 up until phase 2 when I became a car guy, going around being madman, researching, watching videos, Honda forums, looking through all that, etc. But essentially, phase 2 again was when I started my modding process. The main big point that I did there was when I did my manual swap, as well as I did wanted to try what the car would look like blue, because I have been planning for quite a while now of respraying this car or getting it wrapped to kind of like a sail rally blue type. Yeah, but I just haven't had the time nor the money to actually fund it. So that's why if you've seen in the past, the car had a blue hood and a blue bumper, because I was kind of testing some ideas around of what the car might look like. And as well as Civic was involved in an accident around May 2019, I believe. And this was before I did the manual swap. So yeah, I had the opportunity there. I was like, this car needs a new bumper, new hood, new fenders, headlights, etc. Why not try and kind of play around and, see what the front end might look like, at least if I change it blue. So for those wondering, for my friends that were wondering, why do you make it blue? That's another reason. It was involved in an accident, and that was the perfect time for me, since I'm already replacing the parts, to see what the car would look like with a different color. Although I will admit, now that I'm in phase 3, I'm kind of glad the car is all black. At times it did look weird that the car was black and blue. Some of my friends made fun of me for it, but it was an experience that I'm glad I did, because now I am for sure certain that I want the car in that blue color, but I wouldn't do it again. So yeah, that's essentially what phase 2 was when I became a car guy, did the manual swap, and then put a whole lot of other parts such as coilovers, interior stuff, bolt-ons, etc., which I'll kind of talk about and mention in another video, specifically titled somewhere along the lines of what has been done to this Civic in terms of mods. But essentially, that's again what phase 2 was. Going on to phase 3 and like what I have next for the Civic, to kind of recap all the videos I've done before that you've seen on the channel. Phase 3 was kind of like getting to this idea of my dream and how I wanted to build the Civic. I am very into like the whole Kanjo style, culture that they have in Japan, where they build these NA Civics that just run around the loop, the Kanjo loop, and doing like, basically I call them marathon runs, because they're just high revving, banging gears nonstop. I was never really a guy that liked 10-second cars or just could go straight. I always liked that track, toge, Conjo type setup, but I always leaned more towards a Conjo setup. Aside from what the car is now, later in the future, I do plan on someday getting a K series. Specifically, I want to go the route of the K 2024 route. I know that's very popular, but I want to actually build a K series from the ground up, from internals to bolt-ons to everything, to build a all-motor K 2024. Some people ask me, why aren't you aiming for boost? At least through what I've researched and seen in YouTube videos, Contra cars don't really have turbos. They're all motor cars. So in a sense, me trying and aiming for a K series is not really Conjo-ish, because most of the Conjo cars again are B series. But in today's world, B series parts and even some of the engines in itself are super expensive. Originally, I was planning to get a B20 and slap a B16 Type R head on top to make a LSV tech, but parts are expensive. I mean, hell, some of the OEM parts that I'm doing to replace for my D series that I have now, they've skyrocketed. So I guess like the parts that you would normally expect to be cheap, especially for OEM parts, are like super expensive now. So I guess to kind of summarize and kind of compare the two, ideally I wanted to build a B series, whether it would be a B16 on a B20 or even getting a B18 GSR or Type R engine. That would be really nice, but the fact that they're super expensive nowadays doesn't make sense for me, in the fact that I'm not really going to get that much gain in terms of horsepower. Whereas Ks, there's so many Ks out there, in the long run it's cheaper and I get more of an outcome if I were to build a K 2024. Even with stock internals, you can go from 200 to 280 horsepower, around that. Ideally want at least 3 to 350 with a whole build motor, somewhere down the line. But until I get that, I'm going to be happy with my single cam. It is a D16 ZC. The funny thing is, it doesn't have VTEC. So yes, I don't have VTEC in this single cam engine. Well, I did consider wanting to do a mini me swap of putting a VTEC head, but after reading some forums, reading on the cost, it really doesn't make sense otherwise, seeing that I do plan on going K-swap. So rather than just putting the money to put a mini-me, I'd rather just save that up and save that for the K-swap later on down the line. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I know my discussion was kind of all over the place, but I hope that I was able to get the central theme across of what I meant by phases, what this car's been through, what this car will go through in the future. I know I wasn't too specific, and those specifics will be saved for videos later on down the line, and in the future. I do plan on going to some car meets, showcasing some other cars while I'm waiting to get new parts for the Civic. And the reason why I'm waiting, because school, and as well as I'm saving up, because car parts are expensive. And then I as well want to put my other car, my daily, which is a 02 Honda CR-V. I have some parts I want to put on that as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And again, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Deuces.